Hello and welcome to Power to the People with me, Graeme Pryce. I made a video about KEIR STARMER a few days ago titled KEIR STARMER, Bad Knobhead or Britain's Best Hope, and it went quite well and there were a lot of comments, as I expected there would be. I'll leave a link in the descriptions box to that video. I deliberately pitched the title of it as a question and encouraged comments from as many people on different sides of the political spectrum as I could, or I tried to anyway. I spent quite a lot of time answering people in the comments as well, and I saw a range of views and a range of nutters, but you know, it's the internet, isn't it? It's always the case. I like to see a few dissenting opinions though, because that shows there are people that are watching that might hold very different views to me. I don't like the idea of just sitting here talking to loads of people that agree with me. I mean, obviously, they're my favourite people, but we need some variety, don't we? We certainly got some. I'm just going to share a few of the more novel and interesting comments and views, and some of the good points people raised as well, and give you my final verdict on KEIR STARMER right after this. I was just looking at my channel analytics and I was shocked to discover that almost 40% of people who watch my videos aren't subscribed. I was inconsolable. You can go some way towards redressing the balance by just checking that you've subscribed, that you've rang the bell, and that you're hitting the like button before you go. I decided to only count the comments that very clearly said whether they thought he was a good Prime Minister or a bad Prime Minister. I didn't count the ones that were just engaging in conversation and just supporting the channel, as much as I appreciate them. And I came out with 19 very negative comments that think he's a bad knobhead, and 18 that agreed with me that he's probably the best hope that we've got at the moment. Starmer is a liar was one of the most common criticisms. My response was the one I always enact when I see people say, Starmer is a liar, and I asked them to provide evidence of the lies he's told, with a supporting link if necessary. Nobody who claimed Starmer is a liar was actually able to provide any evidence that he is a liar. This criticism seems to stem from the way he treated Corbyn and how he ditched a lot of Corbyn's pledges as soon as he took office. Now, I can understand the reasoning behind that, and there were some good conversations I had with people about Corbyn in the comments section. I wasn't very happy about how he was treated, but I can't find any evidence of Starmer ever saying he intended to carry on with every one of Corbyn's pledges and ideas. I can accept that the people who wanted Starmer to continue Corbyn's legacy feel that they've been misled, but I don't accept that Starmer deliberately lied about it. I do accept that he behaved with a level of deviousness that slightly raises a red flag though. Another common thing was to call him a red Tory. The red Tory thing is common and it's understandable to a degree, but you won't see people that really understand politics say it very often. The reason is relatively clear to someone like me who looks at voting records, but not everybody has the time or the inclination to do that. If you do have a look at the voting records, you will see that throughout the 14 years of the Conservatives being in office, Labour and Starmer himself voted diametrically opposite to them on almost every single issue. You can't be a Tory of any kind if you literally vote against every single thing the Tories try to do. Starmer's a human rights lawyer with a relatively working class background. He's literally named after one of the greatest Labour leaders of all time, because his parents weren't just Labour voters, they were Labour activists. The guy is literally the opposite of a Tory in every way possible. To say he's a red Tory is basically just an admittance of political naivety in some ways. A few people were honest enough to say that they don't really have a reason. They just have a bad feeling about him, or his voice annoys them, or they think he's smarmy, and that kind of thing. And do you know what? I totally accept that. It would be a very boring world if we all liked the same things and held the same opinions and got on with the same people, wouldn't it? In fact, I think that's more valid than the red Tory thing, because it's subjective. You can't really argue with it, can you? Whereas, if you think he's a knobhead because you think he's a red Tory. I can show you his voting record and we can prove that he very much isn't. But if you think he's a knobhead just because he gets on your tits, I'm not going to change your mind, am I, about telling you about him? You don't want to really. One prick said he didn't like him and then went off on a rant about freedom of speech and how J.D. Vance was right when he told blatant lies in Munich a few weeks ago and completely made up a story about people being arrested for praying in the street in the UK. Sorry dude, but Vance is a fascist liar, and people who can't see that aren't really the type of people I want to engage with, because you're not working with a full and logical understanding of reality, are you? I call people who support fascists collaborators. It's an old term, and we all know what happened to them in 1945 when there were no more fascists to collaborate with. Of course, there were a couple of two-tier KEIR reform idiots that commented too. I apologise if this sounds dismissive, but apart from Trump, Vance and Putin lovers, reform voters are currently the most deluded, misinformed and gullible section of the UK society. So while I enjoy the hilarity of their misguided ramblings, I can't really take them seriously. They're basing the whole understanding of politics on whatever lies Nigel Farage or Lee Anderson have posted on Twitter that morning, or what Michelle Dewberry or Jacob Rees-Mogg said on GBB's last night. So they can fuck off, obviously. While there wasn't far off an equal number of comments on either side, I did find that there was less variety of opinion in those that praise, or at least hold no scorn, for Sir Keith. Several people said they felt comforted by the fact that we now at least seem to have a grown-up in charge of our country, not some sheltered, eaten right-wing toff or a raving, filibustering, lying clown of a man, or Liz Truss. I can certainly concur with that one, but it does suggest that there are people that are possibly more forgiving of Starmer than they should be, just because it's such a relief not to have a Tory Prime Minister anymore. I might be one of them sometimes. Another chap was quite peeved that I'd even questioned Starmer's position at a time like this, when the only other possible alternatives are Kemi Badenoch or, God forbid, Nigel fucking Farage. And I can see his point. In fact, I also think it's a bit of a drag to even have to ask the question myself, but that is part of the reason I made the video. I do think that many of the negative opinions I hear about Starmer are rooted in misinformation and right-wing propaganda. I think the more people take an actual interest in how different he is, not just from any Tory Prime Minister, but also from many past Labour Prime Ministers, they often see a bit more in him than they suspected, or were led to believe. There were even more people saying that they liked the fact that he is boring and comparing him to the likes of Boris Johnson and his never-ending scandal train, of course. And then there was somebody who made a very good point about how much better we may have fared throughout the pandemic and how much better our response might have been if Starmer had been in office then. It's conjecture, of course, we can't know for certain, but it's an interesting point to raise nonetheless. There was, and still is, appreciation for his support for Ukraine and a few comments about him looking like the statesman that the UK has now been sorely lacking for a number of years. And I do agree with that one. But there definitely isn't the same strength of feeling as the Tory voters had for Thatcher in the 80s or Labour voters had for Tony Blair in the 90s. It's just not there. There were a few people that were very much prepared to express the depth of feeling that they did have, though. And there was also one guy who I was trying to chat to with a degree of respect until I noticed he was describing the forces that defeated the Nazis as the enemies of Germany. That guy certainly wasn't Antifa, was he? More like pro-Tifa. Bonkers. But that being said, we can always depend on our own homegrown delusional dimwits, dumbasses and dullards to entertain us with their outbursts of verbal excrement. So let us delve into the deluge of delusion that is the bottom half of the internet and check out some of the more deranged comments. If you surround yourself with people with more than 2 functioning brain cells, it can be easy to forget just how many stupid people there are. It's always worth remembering, though, half of the people in the world are below average intelligence. And the ones in Britain have been told not to like KEIR STARMER, and by God, they're going to tell you about it. Tony Robinson 362 felt it necessary to comment, "You're a muppet, just like Starmer." Thanks for that, Tony. We've all learnt a lot from that comment and value your input. Although what we've mostly learned is that you're a fucking idiot. So maybe do a little bit more thinking before you comment in future, eh? V. Tepes the Third gave us his verdict on Starmer by saying, "Most dangerous man alive right now." Not Trump, then. Not Putin. KEIR STARMER. He thinks KEIR, "My father was a tool maker." Starmer is the most dangerous man alive. How much Reform UK bullshit do you have to take seriously on Twitter before you can get to that level of sheer delusion? What a knobhead. Mama Bear has almost certainly got Tommy Robinson on her social media because she felt it necessary to say, "Starmer will destroy what's left of the UK. Enjoy Sharia." It's hard to know how to respond to that, really, isn't it? Imagine being an actual adult that has allowed right-wing propaganda to convince you that Labour are evil and want to destroy the country and allow Sharia law to take over. Fuck me. At least she said Sharia law, not Shakira law, and spelt it right, though. Small blessings, eh? Mike Cropper 8422 started off okay, but then he went off at the deep end a little with this gem. "As re the title, I'll go with Bad Knobhead. Worst Prime Minister we've ever had, and by God we've had some bad ones." How on earth does anybody look at the last few Prime Ministers and think KEIR STARMER is the worst of them? What the actual fuck is going on with Mike Cropper 8422? In a world where Boris Johnson and Liz Truss have been Prime Minister, it is literally impossible for Starmer to be at the bottom of the list. I was quite stunned by that one, but check out this next load of shite. John Hewitt 7284 says, "Starmer is a knobhead and a liar. He makes Boris look like he tells the truth, and that's saying something." Fuck me, lad, your elevator doesn't go all the way to the top, does it? Your comment is saying something, yeah? It's saying you're a fucking idiot. Dumbass. And I think we'll finish on this masterpiece that managed to be simultaneously offensive and also quite funny. It seems I've attracted the attention of the odd MAGA lunatic, as Paul Morris said, "You sound like a British version of Camel Toe Harris." I'm not very good at the American accents, am I? Do I, Paul? Do I really? Okay. But at least I never voted for a fat, orange, rapey fascist. Fuck off, maggot. Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. I do love reading the comments, even the incredibly stupid ones, so it's been interesting and enlightening to a degree. Kind of. My opinion of Starmer hasn't changed very much. The people who call him a liar still don't seem to be able to provide any evidence to back up their claims. I'm not very happy about the welfare cuts thing, but as usual, the media have spent weeks scaremongering and lying about it, and it turned out nowhere near as bad as they claimed. It's almost as if all the papers are owned by right-wing millionaires that want us to hate Labour or something. Anyway, thankfully, most people around here anyway aren't stupid enough to fall for it. Some definitely are though, as we've seen. Either way, it's all good. All comments help, even the rude ones, and I do appreciate the engagement. If you'd like to help the channel a bit further, then there are links for PayPal, Patreon and the Buy Me a Coffee page, frolicking frantically in the descriptions box. And the join button for memberships is, as always, below. Now that isn't all that I could say about Sir Keir Starmer, obviously, but it is as much of what I've got to say as I'm going to say today. Ta-ra-la. Well, I was hoping she'd go and lie back down, but it seems that she needs some attention. So it looks like I've got a co-host. You need me co-host? Yeah.